Welcome to Fringe Element here on the 440 Sports Network. Laid back couch edition. My name is Braden Gall. You can get to me on Twitter at Braden Gall.
Mine's Erin Dugan. You can follow me on Twitter at the Erin Dugan or Instagram Erin_Dugan. Braden has already called me demonic today, and I'm wearing my hood to, try to live up to, be harder.
It's factually
I want to be
incorrect,
harder.
but as usual, Erin likes to throw misinformation out on the pod as fast as possible. Mike Rodak's going to be on the show today. Alabama, State of the Union. Is Alabama's dynasty in decline, Erin? Is it in decline? Is this finally the time that it's actually...
I'm the Grim Reaper of Alabama. That's what I'm doing right now.
You're dressed like you're murdering the tide. No, Mike Rodak, AL.com, going to join us a little bit later on, give us an Alabama State of the Union. Michael Bratton, who filled in admirably for you last week on the show, said that he's very concerned about the Alabama Crimson Tide. Paul Feinbaum was on last week's episode, so I have a question to ask you about Nick Saban coming up in just a minute. But we're gonna have a light episode considering all the death talk to start the show. We're gonna have a light episode. We're gonna go through the superlatives, our favorite things. We're gonna do stadiums and rivalries and college towns, bars and restaurants, logos, mascots. We're gonna have some fun and keep it light today. Is that okay with you? I'm sitting on a couch.
My hood off.
I'm feeling very relaxed, so I thought we'd keep it light today on the show. What do you think?
Yeah, I felt like in order to keep it light, I was going to have to lose the fully hooded look. And if you're watching on YouTube, I did lose the hood, and I'm ready to be positive.
If you're watching on YouTube, we, of course, at the Cast Collective Studio. Erin, I'll get you to tell everybody about that in just a second. You can also see all of our fancy University Tradition hats on the table. Good friends at University Traditions. Make sure you check them out as well. All right, so before we get into all this different stuff today on the show, Erin, please tell everybody if they are coming to Nashville. More importantly, maybe if their friends are coming to Nashville, or if they know someone who's coming to Nashville, their mom's coming to Nashville. What should they do if they need like a little private event space that's walking distance to a lot of cool stuff in Nashville?
We are at our studio, the Cast Collective, run by Sean P. Diddy Combs and myself, my brother. It is on Music Row, like right in historic district of Music Row, where all the recording studios are. So there's a lot of like foot traffic. If you're in Nashville and you're visiting, you probably have this street on your list to come visit. But we do everything from podcast recordings, obviously, and photo shoots. We have events here. We just had like a really cool music industry night event on Thursday.
Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Well, it wasn't technically my event.
Oh, okay.
Well, you have parties all the time and don't invite me. You're like, I had all my friends over for the Super Bowl. It was so fun. And I'm like, you don't invite. So why, you know what I'm saying?
Sean P. Diddy Combs was invited.
I'm sure he was.
I will also apologize to you South Carolina fans. You challenged me a couple of weeks ago on the show. You said, Braden, you've got to do something for these South Carolina folks that you continue to torment psychologically.
Which you're about to do again.
With your football takes. No. The challenge was I was hosting Feinbaum, and you said, hey, I'm going to give you something to say on the show so that a shout out to South Carolina fans.
You didn't even say what I wanted you to say.
Yeah, you did. I wrote it down. I was supposed to say that I'm basically a large giant doofus, but like in South Carolina lingo, and I did. And so we have that clip. We're going to play it for you a little bit later on in the show, and we'll see if it's a good enough apology for you. Okay?
It's not for me. I'm not the one that's been tortured by you and drugged through this turbulent relationship that you have with the Gamecocks. I'm good.
Okay. SEC superlatives off the field. Should we call it that? Off the field superlatives? Sort of like.
It's not necessarily off the field. We got traditions. We got marching band stuff.
It's our favorite non-X's and O's, non like game play.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like a very light episode. Then we'll have an Alabama State of the Union, Mike Rodak, of course, a little bit later on. My apology to South Carolina fans. Let's start real quickly with the question.
He doesn't mean it.
By the way, shout out to our music on the show. It's been a part of the show since the very beginning. The Wild Feathers. My daughters love it. My wife love it. I've loved them for a long time. I've been at concerts way too drunk, singing way too loudly at their songs, but they've been a part of the show since the very beginning.
Also, SEC fans.
Yes, Georgia fans. They're from Austin and Nashville, so they kind of overlap the old and the new SEC. So if you haven't, if you ever wondered what the amazing and spectacular and awesome music is on this show, make sure you go check out the Wild
Feathers.
And
they've come on the show. They've been guests.
They have. Ben, shout out.
Ben. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's enough bills. My question about Saban. So Paul Feinbaum said this. I asked him last week, and I said, Paul, what is the thing that is going to drive Nick Saban out of the business?
You can't ask Paul Feinbaum a question like that without having a really, really, really obnoxious Southern accent. Paul.
Hey, Paul. And the producers of the show want, and this is kind of a humble brag, and I don't mean it to be because it sounds terrible.
I'm sure you do.
Like they want to change the intro to Better Call Gall, like call Gall. It's call Paul.
You mean when you're on it?
Because I'm hosting again this week. Just check it out Friday. They said, can we do call Gall? And I was like, I don't think you guys want to do that. Like I don't want to do that.
Why not? You didn't think of it. Come on, tell the truth.
I will say this, Jim in Tuscaloosa, you are scared. You're scared if you're scared by a dog. Legend AC, I love you guys. Okay.
I don't know what that means.
So I asked Paul the question, what's going to drive him away? And he said, basically in a roundabout way, go listen to the whole interview and check it out on YouTube. But basically the answer was losing. When he can no longer win championships as consistently as he has, that was it. If I asked you, what do you think it is that drives him away from coaching and eventually leads to his retirement? What is it that you think causes that?
I mean, I think if he's even close, I would go the opposite. I would say epically winning in like a very decisive way and going out on that note. But I will say when you come off that high for any coach of like a national championship or kind of some of the postseasons that Saban's been a part of, it's hard to walk away from. But if he's even thinking about it, I see him going out on an epic winning season rather than a losing one. I just don't see him fizzling out.
I feel the same way. I feel similar to you. Paul knows him a lot better than we do, but I agree with you. I could see him we know that he softened when he had grandkids, and we know that he kind of softened with the tornado and all that stuff that happened at the same time. He kind of gained perspective, which happens to someone when they are, when they have grandkids. But I also think to me, he maintains this certain level of expectation of himself on a minute by minute, meeting to meeting, hour by hour, day to day basis. So he and if you know anything about him, he's in a meeting. That's the only thing he cares about. Mm-hmm. That's what makes him great. Is
very
his ability.
Present.
Exactly the right word. That's his ability to make his moment and that time perfect. Execute whatever it is we're doing. I'm sweeping the floor. Better be a perfectly goddamn swept floor.
Right.
That's it. And that's what makes him great. And I could see him just waking up one morning in June and just being oh, I wasn't as good as I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And he's not meeting his own standards, and therefore saying, this is not for me anymore. I'm not doing the right thing for Alabama and my players.
So you think it'll have less to do with the wins and losses and more to do with his own execution on a day-to-day?
That's my personal feeling, but you and Paul both kind of went into the wins and losses territory, and I think it's a confluence of all of the events. Let's say he loses to Kirby a few more times, or he wins one more championship. Maybe he has another grandkid, and he doesn't feel like he's executing to his personal levels. Mm-hmm. All that may come together and lead to... I just think it's going to be random as hell. I don't think it's going to be an orchestrated... hey, this is my last year. We're going to have a going away party at the end of the season.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like Nick Saban to me.
I will say he'll do it at a time. I'm not saying it won't be random, but I do think he'll do it at a time, the perfect time that sets the program up to have someone come in. Because we've seen people leave at unideal times, and then the coaching scramble, and then it's hard to deal with transfers and transfer portal and all that. So I do think he'll do it with great consideration for who's coming behind him, but don't know when that will be, obviously.
If it's a new collection of people in charge at Alabama, it will be Lane Kiffin. If it's the same collection of people in charge at Alabama, I'm not sure it'll be Lane Kiffin. Mm-hmm. Meaning the power brokers and Greg Byrne and some other people. Either way, we'll answer the question after our State of the Union with Mike Rodak from AL.com. We will answer the question, is the Alabama dynasty ending? Erin, we'll get your thoughts on that at the end of the show. All right, let's lighten the mood. Superlatives. This is completely subjective, and if you would like to chime in, especially on the bars and restaurants portion of this, I want people, because I have not been to every SEC town. I've been to most of them. And I'm taking the kids. This is how nerdy we are. We're going up to the Ozarks later in the fall with the kids, and we are intentionally taking a route that takes me through Columbia, South Missouri.
Is that the only one left on your list?
Fayetteville.
You haven't been to Fayetteville at all?
I've not been to Fayetteville.
Oh, you're missing out.
I know, dude. I hear great things. Those might be the only two now that I think about it. But
I have not been to Missouri. That's it.
But because we haven't been to every single bar and restaurant in every single town, and there's a million great ones all across the Southeast, please chime in. YouTube comments, at Braden Gall, at the Aaron Dugan, wherever. Just let us know what we're missing. I've got a list of stuff, but we're going to do uniforms, stadiums, traditions, rivalries, towns.
Uniforms. That's what I forgot.
Logos, mascots. Thanks for prepping. Nickname, fight songs. We're going to do our favorite stuff in the SEC because it's a light time of the year. It's downtime. And, we're just going to have a little fun here. I was going to start with uniforms, but I guess I should give you a minute to prepare for that.
I don't think it'll take me long.
Because I have a number one greatest uniform in the SEC, period, full stop.
Hold on, give me 2 seconds. Well, you can start because already got my two. I have the first two that came to mind for me.
Now, we are not including Texas and Oklahoma, but you may, as you see fit, include them if you want to.
Okay.
Okay, so like I love the Texas uniforms. I think the Texas uniforms are great. They would not be number one on my list, but I think they're up there among the top 2 or 3 when they join the SEC. But LSU's the best uniform in the conference. I'm sorry. In my opinion,
LSU has good uniforms.
LSU's my favorite uniform. That's it. I would go LSU number one, best uniform.
First 2 things that come to mind for me are smoky gray Tennessee uniforms.
Really?
I love those.
Okay.
Is that a hot take?
I think the grays have come around on Tennessee.
No, I love the gray. I love the gray. And
Okay.
I also like the straight up all white with the orange.
Yeah, Stormtrooper.
Detail. Yeah.
Love the Stormtrooper.
And then the Ole Miss baby blues.
So I have Ole Miss powder blues as my number 2.
Powder blue.
That would be my number 2, or baby blues, whatever. That would be my number 2. They're just phenomenal.
We could even do helmets as its own category. What about the worst situation for a second? Remember when Florida did the gator pants and shoes or gator shoes?
The all orange gator, where it's like, Florida fans, I love you very much, but your orange is trashy. Okay. Tennessee's orange is a little bit better. Auburn's orange.
One's not like way less trashy than the
Auburn's
others.
orange. Yeah, but it's just dirtier. Florida's orange is dirtier.
Well, they're in the
Tennessee's
swamps.
orange. Yeah, it's trashy. It's trashier.
They're trashy.
Auburn's orange is classy. Texas's orange is pretty classy. There's some oranges that I like darker shades of orange, which is ironic because Tennessee goes brighter. But the reason Tennessee orange is because it matches the trees in the Smoky Mountains in the fall, and it matches the campus.
Well, maybe Florida has a reason that their orange is that color.
Right, when they're picking up trash on the side of the road. That's in their convict outfit. No, Florida fans, I'm kidding. I love you guys.
Way to just...
I do not...
that Braden has now ruined 2 of our main target markets, all of South Carolina and all of Florida.
Watch this, and I'm going to make Sean PDD Combs do some work on this. Flash up the Florida throwbacks with the white helmets and the big F on the side that Tebow wore that are like bright... They're not bright blue, but they're like royal blue. Mm-hmm. And they have like the stripes on the shoulder pads and the white helmet with the F. Those are one of the best uniforms in the history of the SEC. So I can say that Florida has one of the best uniforms in the history of the SEC. They don't wear them very often.
Everything is conditional with you.
They're unbelievable uniforms. But guess what? Uniforms are completely subjective. It's totally what you think. And I just think LSU's color palette, like their scheme is
Braden's
the best.
like, you're trash, your uniform's trash, your color orange is trash, but everything's just subjective. It's just my opinion.
And Gainesville's the 14th best town in the SEC. No, I'm kidding. Starkville's worse.
He has not been to Columbia, Missouri again. Sorry.
I think let's do logo then, because I do think.
Well, you didn't respond to my gators. Remember when Florida did that? Like it was like gator skin. Was it shoes or pants?
Oh, I know what
Remember
you're talking
that?
about. I know what you're talking about. So I wasn't really considering like third uniforms, but I know,
but like about. I'm just talking about a bad run.
It was bad. It was bad.
Really bad.
I also think black uniforms, when it is not your primary color, look terrible.
Do you like A&M's all black?
No, I don't like Tennessee's black. I think it looks terrible. I think black looks awesome on Vanderbilt, looks awesome on Missouri, and occasionally Georgia maybe, because it's kind of a primary color, but it's like more secondary. But I just don't want to see Mississippi State in a black uniform. I don't want to see Kentucky in a black uniform. I don't want to see South Carolina can get away with it. Mm-hmm. South Carolina can get away with it because it's kind of part of their scheme.
Kentucky's had some good bouts of like helmet game, like their chrome helmets and stuff.
You like them?
I do like the chrome.
One of my favorite helmets is the Vanderbilt all white. Mm-hmm. The white helmet with like the storm. When Vanderbilt goes Stormtrooper, I think I love the Stormtrooper.
Me too.
They look great. Logos. If we're gonna go logo, I think.
Don't even get me started on Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. I like
millions of dollars on a rebrand to change the font of the V.
And take the
and
star
you're calling
away,
me for money.
And take the star away. That makes it very like recognizable, right?
I know.
I think Georgia's logo is hard to beat because it's so simple. It's so direct. I'm also a huge Green Bay Packers fan, which is the same logo. Mm-hmm. I think the power T is extremely well designed.
I put Georgia and Tennessee.
Auburn, I like that.
I don't like Auburn's.
You don't? Mm-mm. Okay. I like the Ole Miss script is pretty good too.
Yep.
I like that one. The Razorback is solid. Just the Razorback.
There's something about that like the solidarity of one letter that just gets me. Like the T, the G, like we're talking about.
Do you like the script A for Alabama? Yeah, I'm kind of the same way.
It just doesn't feel like a stamp.
Plus, you got all those championships. I think the best one will be the Longhorn.
It's strong.
The Longhorn logo just got the shape of it all. Just perfect logo. Just a perfect logo.
Is it? There's a UT? Letters?
It's just
the Longhorn. They don't ever do letter.
It's the long.
They don't ever just use a letter.
No, I think there was an old one with like Darryl Royal maybe that was like the word Texas and like script maybe, but like I think it's just been the Longhorn logo forever, and it's very simple. I like simple. I know you're a big fan of simple and clean. Like I like the simple, clean stuff. So I don't know. How about nickname? Favorite nickname? Because there's a lot of Tigers and Wildcats and none of y'all count.
Yeah. Favorite nickname. I mean, I love.
There's too many Tigers and Bulldogs.
I wrote literally too many Tigers.
Too many Tigers, too many Wildcats.
But I will say, of the Tigers that do it, think about the discrepancy in like execution on the Tiger between Mike the Tiger at LSU and Aubie. I mean,
you mean like
Aubie? Sorry guys, Aubie needs like.
Are you talking about the way he's dressed or like the actual name Tigers?
No, I'm talking about like the actual tiger because Mike the Tiger is a real ass tiger, and Aubie looks like Aubie looks like he needs to do the next like the case on Queer Eye. Like he needs a rebrand. Jeez. He just looks like someone drew a tiger from memory.
I do. That's true, and he looks kind of crazy in the eyeballs.
He looks crazy.
Yeah, he looks pretty strung out on meth. There's no question. I will say this: I
love Smokey.
The old 60s logos for the Tigers, Auburn and LSU. They're like the old cartoon with like the weird tilted sailor hat and stuff. Like I love those old logos. I don't know how I like the unique ones. Razorbacks, Gamecocks.
Yeah.
You know, Commodores, Volunteers will probably be in next tier down. Like Crimson Tide is literally named after a group of people in the stands.
I just don't like
that's not that.
And it's you could say go Elephants.
Yes.
But you don't.
If you're a Tiger, Wildcat, or a Bulldog, you're off. If you're named after
But if you're a Tiger, good job for having a real tiger.
That we'll get to mascots in a second.
Although caged wild animals.
But I just like the ones that you've never heard. Like there's not a single team in America that is the Razorbacks or the Gamecocks. There's not nobody in Division I, no FBS schools, no out of the 133. There's nobody that has that. And I like the uniqueness of those. Again, Volunteers and Commodores are kind of cool. Commodore's better than Volunteer in my opinion, but they're like they're a tier down.
Are we forgetting someone?
I'm trying to. It's like
because Arkansas really kills it because you've got. I mean, we'll get
Aggies is also one that's been around. Like other teams use that. It's not a new one.
So there's another team with Commodores.
Is it in Division I?
No, maybe not Division I.
Kansas State used to be the Aggies, and then they changed to the Wildcats. Real creative.
Speaking of changing things, can someone in here fix the internet? Sean?
It's not important. It's not important. It's not.
Okay, never mind.
All right, well then let's go to mascot then because we're already talking about it. Look.
What were we doing?
I was doing nicknames.
Oh, well, it's kind of the same.
No. Mike
That's
the
true.
Tiger is one of the greatest mascots of all time. The word tiger is the most uncreative nickname of all time. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know how it's not cocky. Best dance moves in the conference.
Love cocky.
South Carolina fans, you hear what I'm saying? I like your nickname. I like your mascot. I like your black uniforms. All positive. Cocky's dance moves are the best dance moves.
Just not your execution.
Cocky's dance moves are the best moves, right?
On either side of the ball, the coaching staff and the personnel.
I like the team, and I apologize, and you'll hear it later. Who does a bet? Like Smokey's pretty cool.
I love Smokey.
Mike the Tiger's pretty cool.
People freak out when Smokey comes out.
Yeah, and he's got a real. I will say my father.
Ugga is pretty solid.
my daughters do love Smokey. They like him as like a logo and a mascot.
Yeah, he's
like,
great.
they
He
love
runs off
Smokey.
on the field and people freak out. Then
Really
there's
annoying
Uga,
bark.
yeah, with the absolute opposite approach, who hates the heat, is just doing everything he can to like get out of the sun.
Please lift my jowls so that
Not
you can
a-
wipe the boogers out of my jowls.
Yeah, he doesn't run across the field or run at all.
Rivalry, of course, is the beautiful Texas A&M dog. It's out there as well. She's got the beautiful dog there. Just not as cool as Smokey or Mike the Tiger as terms of real mascots, or Uga. But as far as like the ones that are dressed up on game day, I think Cocky's the best. Like I don't know who
agree.
does a better job.
No one executes it better than Cocky does. I mean, the land
He's out
shark's
there like
entertaining.
shaking it around.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah, but Cocky really like full send from Cocky.
Yes, it's great. Which leads us to, I don't know where you want to go. Do you want to go stadiums here? We can go stadiums.
We can go stadiums.
Stadiums is about to piss everybody off. I had a really tough time with this because they're all so great. Truly, like some of them are a little bit more like less renovated than others.
That's for sure true.
But that's just like part of the natural cycle of a stadium. Like I don't think the Swamp right now isn't particularly great. It's like getting better because they just did a huge facility
Right.
upgrade, but like the stadium is still
there's different. There's like a stadium. You can go stadiums and environment as separate things.
Yes.
So why don't we
Vanderbilt
do-
doesn't actually have one right now.
Yeah.
It's like actually torn down.
I know.
They're rebuilding it right now as we speak.
Let's do stadiums and environments because they're different.
I don't
So,
know how. I
like
don't know how it's not
stadiums,
LSU
I mean-
then.
What?
I don't know how it's not LSU.
Yeah.
But my favorite.
You mean environment or physical stadium?
like if you're putting them together like
It's
you're
LSU
saying,
or
I don't know how it's not LSU.
I mean A&M's.
A&M's. So I went and
It's probably those two.
I went and toured the facilities in College Station like right after the renovation and ended up sitting at like the top row. I went to the very top row of the stadium just to see what it feels like, and it's like Neyland Stadium in that you are like looking straight down on the field. Like
Yeah.
it is monstrous, and I think that's how you want it to feel. I personally enjoy the charm of Jordan-Hare Stadium at Auburn and Sanford Stadium at Georgia. There's just more. There's something about like being in the trees and the hill, a little bit more hilly, and
And
there's
you
just
haven't
sort of
been
like
to Arkansas.
I have not. It's true. I've not been to Arkansas.
Overlooks like on the mountain. The view's insane.
I bet you that one. I completely agree. So
Yeah.
true. Yeah. True. In interest of full disclosure, I've not been to Missouri or Arkansas, so that's very fair. But I like the power and the noise of LSU, Tennessee, and A&M.
Those are the if
are the
you
big
put
three,
everything
probably.
together, like environment and stadium, those are the top three. If you just went environment, I say Williams-Brice is way up there.
Yeah.
South Carolina's environment is crazy. Like you can feel it shaking when everybody does sandstorm, which is I guess is the tradition question. But
That
Yeah.
would be It's on. I got it written down here. South Carolina. I got a lot of South Carolina positivity.
I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of good things about South Carolina game day.
If you're telling me like pick a stadium you can go watch like a top 5 matchup in.
Death Valley.
LSU's number one for like the environment, but for what's the phrase? Like the scene. Mm-hmm. It would probably be Athens or Auburn. I'd probably go Sanford Stadium. I'd probably go Athens.
I would
Between
go
the
Athens,
hedges,
too.
like it's just you got
It's
the big pine
Saturday.
trees and like the whole thing is so idyllic. I like idyllic over like urban or super like Starkville's just kind of middle of nowhere. But I'll be fascinated to see Missouri because I'm going to force my parents. As a parent, I'm going to force my children and wife to
you
stop.
are supposed to be the parent.
Yeah, I'm going to force them to stop. True story, on the way to the beach one year, we stopped at Troy, Alabama so I could see the Troy Stadium. Because we were driving through, and I was like, we're not going to drive right through Troy, Alabama and not look at the stadium.
I'm sure your family was stoked for that.
You want to go tradition?
Yeah, we can go tradition. Did we leave anybody out of that big time? Because town is different. Let's do town now.
Town? You want to do town?
Because we're already talking about
I don't know
stadiums.
how it's not Auburn or Athens.
I mean, Oxford's pretty freaking cool.
Oxford's pretty fun.
I love going to Oxford.
It's pretty awesome.
I mean, in like the outside and the tailgating, we could do that as a separate
If we
category
were doing
too.
tailgate, I would
Oxford
have
with Walk of Champions through it
I
is
would have
good.
the Grove as the number one tailgate by far.
Yeah.
Baton Rouge with just like the sea of Creole gumbo and deliciousness and half
just
naked
more
people,
spread out.
and it's kind of like it's not. To me, what I love about LSU is it's not as charming an area. Like it's more parking lots and kind of spread out, like you said. To me, the Grove is it's got more of that like intimate vibe and intimate feel. There's just not, because we're going to get to UT, and I wanted to ask you about this. Tennessee's doing this whole entertainment district on top of their parking garage right outside Neyland Stadium. And part of the reason I think it's a great idea for Tennessee, but not necessarily for other places, and this is actually a good little pause here in the conversation.
And actually stop. Sean, are we good on reset? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Leave it in. I think, like, because in between Neyland Stadium and the river, there's like nothing there. It's not charming at all. There's no like little grass patches. Gratchy. There's no like little spaces to like set up like the Grove, right? Like there's nothing like that right there. It's just the stadium and like a parking garage, the G20, like you got Calhoun's or whatever, no free shouts, and then like the little frontage roads and then the river. It's not nearly charming enough. So what Danny White and Tennessee's doing is building an entertainment district on top of all those garages. So it's going to be like open air, markets and food places and stuff, and like a hotel that's right there. And I think it is the wave of the future in college football in the SEC, but I think it works better in Columbia. I think it works better in Austin, Texas. I think it works better in Lexington, Kentucky. I think if Vanderbilt was a quote unquote big boy, I think they would have an extraordinarily built up like entertainment district, because West End is very popular in Nashville. Vanderbilt's just not baked into it as much because it's not Tennessee.
How
or LSU.
Are we not, since they're trying to raise $3 billion? Okay.
Have they asked you for money?
Yes.
But like, what do you think of like the entertainment district style, like Wrigleyville, or the place that's outside of, is it the Battery that's outside the Brave Stadium? I don't remember what.
I think it's the Battery, isn't it?
It's something like that. But it's like this kind of Fanville.
What do I think about that for Tennessee, district. You mean?
Or in general as a like, I wouldn't want to see it at LSU.
Yeah, it wouldn't feel that authentic. I kind of think about like, it kind of is like Omaha-esque, like the little places around Omaha.
Yes, it's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's like a way to make money and create a party venue, but like you don't need that if you have the Grove.
I know. There's like more authenticity to like the Grove not having to be, it's like not forced, but it's so much more picturesque and there's so much greenery. So it's like you don't really have to do that there. I don't know. I guess if they kept it authentic and it wasn't just like, the new restaurants we never heard of, or like Hat World, or like just dumb stuff, you know what I mean? That it wouldn't feel like.
Buy your boots next to Neyland Stadium.
Yeah,
no, it needs to be a place to like party.
Yeah.
Because like Tennessee doesn't really have. So like Circle Park, which is where I spent a whole lot of time in college, is like a big kind of park that's grass, but it's like up the hill from the stadium. And there's no place, there's nothing like the Grove, in my opinion. And then like Auburn and Georgia kind of have like these pathways that kind of weave through the campus to get to their stadiums. I always think
about walking to the Georgia games. Like there's something about, because you can just see it. Like
when the train tracks.
Yeah,
it's great.
Opens up.
I think like Baton Rouge, like LSU is just sort of, it's like kind of like Kansas City, the Chiefs, where it's just this monstrosity of passion and noise and partying, but it's just kind of like a large flat spot, which is most of Louisiana, to be fair.
Yeah.
And then like Notre Dame's very similar. Notre Dame has it's just like a big, large, flat parking lot, but like you're standing next to this beautiful stadium that's going to be so crazy that you know where you are.
Are we doing tailgating right now? What are we doing?
I don't know. We're talking about the entertainment district in Knoxville, and I don't want to see it done in certain places. I would not want to see it done in Oxford. I would not want to see it done in Auburn or Georgia. I think it would work in Austin because the campus is downtown and the stadium is like next to an interstate.
Yeah, and like what you said about Vanderbilt, like if there was room and they were gonna do it, it would work here because it's already a city. It's not a college town.
Right. That's why Columbia, South Carolina, Lexington, Kentucky, Austin, Texas, Vanderbilt, Knoxville.
They all make sense.
Fayetteville, I don't know how it sits in the community.
In Athens, you don't need it.
Right.
South Carolina, everyone's just outside the stadium. Like South Carolina is, I mean, people go to restaurants around there, but like it's kind of like.
Would it work? If you build like again, whatever an entertainment district could look like around that stadium, would it work? I think it
could. I don't know if they need it.
I think it does when you're in bigger cities. I think when you're in these small college like kind of towns, that's where it's like it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, keep an eye on what's going to happen outside of Neyland. It's going to be very interesting. Okay, what are we at now? College towns still? Oxford, Athens, and Auburn Auburn is my favorite probably because everything about that town is centered around one thing, one identity, one purpose. There is no other thing in that place.
Neither is there in College Station, but
Auburn is nicer.
I go Athens and Oxford.
Those are my three. Auburn was number one on my list, but Oxford and Athens.
Should we do tradition since we're talking?
Yeah, because I don't count the Grove as a tradition, really.
Walk of Champions is.
Yeah, I would count it as the best tailgate in the SEC.
Traditions, yeah, but I mean, there's something traditional about how bougie they are. I mean, do you chandeliers and tents, guys.
Then it would be number one on my list. I'm thinking more like Sandstorm.
Yeah, that kind of tradition.
That's like a tradition.
The
Midnight Yell for Texas A&M is a tradition. Running through the T and the Vol Navy for Tennessee would be a tradition.
Everything about LSU's like pregame, halftime, band is it Tiger?
But does that count as like a tradition or just kind of like
the Golden Girl?
Performance?
They do like the dun dun dun. I know that's kind of like their song.
Keep singing.
But their old dances that never changed, where it's literally like these girls win national championships and they're literally doing this on the field. And on the dance team, they just have, they never change. For those of you watching
on YouTube.
Yeah. They do these just big L shape. And these girls can also are probably some of the most talented dancers in the nation.
They just have to do
but they do, they never changed that stuff from the very beginning of when the marching band started playing.
Don't put me in a box, LSU.
No.
Tumor's Corner is at the top of the list. Rolling Tumor's Corner for, I guess it used to be.
Nobody that's not Mississippi State fan likes the cowbell, but we know you love your own cowbell.
So that's a great question. Does that count as a tradition? Because I think it counts as game day atmosphere.
Oh, I absolutely think it counts as tradition.
Okay, then I like it. No, I don't want to be in the stadium for it, but I like it.
I think if Sandstorm is a tradition, so is the cowbell.
Yeah, but that's pregame. That's like a pregame. That's like running to the tee.
That's tradition, though.
Okay.
So is and then they were the very first person to use remember when they did #Hail State in the end zone?
Yeah.
No one had ever done anything outside Hail State really picked up traction outside of Mississippi when they did that.
We didn't have hashtags on here, but I would argue that's the best one.
Yeah.
VFL, GDO, Anchor Down, Gig'em, WDE, War Damn Eagle, RTR, Roll Tide Roll.
RTR.
Go Dogs.
RMFT.
Yeah, the best. MIZZOU, Mizzou. I by far the best one's Hail State.
Totally.
Now, okay, what is Hotty Toddy?
What about Cox on Top? That's a hashtag.
I did not.
Sorry
know
to my
that.
interns.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that
does Hotty Toddy count as a fight song or a tradition or neither?
I think it counts as both because everybody does it. It's not just their fight song. Everybody in the stadium does that.
And pregame and walking around town.
And what song does the Mighty Sound of the South always play? They do a Darth Vader song.
Oh, is that because they went all
bum 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 ba-dum?
Yeah, that's the Death March.
Yep.
The Death March.
They do that on third down.
I think so because they were Admiral Akbar for a while, right? They became the admirals or whatever.
Yep.
I like Sandstorm, Tumor's Corner, Vol Navy. Would be three of my top. The Midnight Yell is pretty cool because it's not
Pig Suey
because it's the night before. But see, Pig Suey to me is just a chant.
It's just then we'll have to talk about the chants after this. Tradition.
It's to Arkansas fans. I love you guys, and I know there's a lot of new subscribers. We love you, but that is the most obnoxious. It's like with the cowbells. I really appreciate it as long as I'm not there.
Yeah. What about Vol Navy?
Vol Navy's near the top of the list. The only other place you can sailgate, University of Washington.
Yep.
If you can sailgate, I'm in. Mm-hmm. Count me in.
Does everybody know what sailgating is?
Boats are a money pit, though. So
can pull up right next. Will you explain Vol Navy for people who don't know about it?
It's a bunch of boats that pull up on the river right there next to the stadium, and that's where you sailgate. If you watched Game Day last year, you saw Pat McAfee doing backflips into the freaking river.
And Vol Navy started from a former broadcaster at Tennessee not wanting to wait in traffic.
Oh, that's
true. Did you know that?
I think I did know that story.
So he pulled up on Tennessee River to Neyland because he didn't want to wait in traffic.
I will say this. As a Tennessee alum, I will admit that the Washington sailgating is way better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The guy I used to work with, used to be the head coach there, and I've done a few shows. Rick Neuheisel would take a boat from his office to the stadium on game day.
It's so legit.
Like,
wow.
When you can take a boat from your football facility to your stadium, you're living a good life. So I think Vols fans don't want to admit this. We are the second best sailgating party in the country.
Yeah,
but I don't think there's a third one.
No, there's not. What was I going to say? Oh, shit.
Nice. Good job. You want me to move on to the next topic?
No, we forgot. There was one other. Oh, do you consider checkerboarding a tradition?
I don't consider like third uniforms or checkerboarding the crowd, like a blackout, which I don't think works very well, honestly, because it mutes the colors and it makes you not see as many people. When you do a whiteout, like at Penn State, you can see more people and it makes it seem more intimidating. Right. Checkerboarding looks cool on television and probably when you're in the stadium. I think I was there for the Oklahoma Baker Mayfield game that was checkerboarded, and it's fine. I wouldn't consider that a tradition. That's just something that's like a marketing gimmick.
Yeah, it is marketing gimmick. I will make an announcent though, and I'm not speaking directly to one school, but I kind of am. If you're doing a whiteout with another team when we're playing someone that has a very large fan base and one of their colors is white, it's going to look like everybody in your stadium is, I don't know, a Tennessee fan. So if you're doing a whiteout, you can't do a whiteout against Tennessee and have all your fans wear white, and so it's only white and orange. I don't know why people need to have this explained.
I see what you're saying.
But I mean, obviously,
you got to do the blackout during Tennessee game.
But it's like, what are we doing? Now every single person in the stadium is white and orange.
I hear you.
Or a blackout against Georgia. You can't do that.
As if they weren't all going to be wearing white and orange anyway.
You said it. I was thinking it.
I've told you the story about my daughter, right? She shamed me into taking her to the Tennessee.
Yeah, I like that story.
I told the story last year. She shamed, basically, we started watching the game at home. It's raining. It's nasty. We don't have tickets. And my 6-year-old does a crying face that she's never made before. It is not pain. It is not whining. It is shaming me as a father.
It's disappointment.
Yes.
She was disappointed.
I've never seen this face before. So my wife looks at me and she does the eyebrows up like, you going to do something about that?
It was a good game to go to.
We jump in the truck. We go across town. We park for free. We get 2 free tickets. We go in. We sit in the rain and she loves it. Second, third quarter, she makes it through the whole thing. She's 6 years old, watches 7 touchdowns.
Thank you for adding that.
And then, but they're cheering so much at one point during the end of the third quarter, near the end of the third quarter, it's I think the final score was 59-0. Sorry. And she looks at me one time, Dad, and she just goes, because I was teaching her about stadiums and being on the road versus being at home. And she's learning this stuff. And I was just this is Vanderbilt University. It's part of the Nashville. It's our SEC school. And I was not trying to talk shit about Vanderbilt.
No, I mean,
I was just teaching her what road and home is and what that means. Because she's kind of well, why is everybody, when we watch it on TV, she's always well, everyone's cheering for that team. And I'm well, that's because it's in their stadium. I'm trying to teach that. And at one point she looks up because the band and everything had been playing Rocky Top quite a bit that night.
Yeah. And
she looks at me and she goes, Dad, there's a lot of orange in the stadium. Mm-hmm. After learning that it was a road game.
Yeah, so she's just confused.
And I looked at her and I said, welcome to Vanderbilt football, honey. And she got it. So
yeah, and it's the better. The sooner she knows, the better.
Speaking of best fight songs, not even close. Don't come at me with anything else that you have. It is Rocky Top.
It is. That might be the best fight song in the country, not just the SEC.
The only fight song that is played at non-alumni weddings. A fan from Louisville and a fan from Virginia are getting married, and they might have Rocky Top at their wedding. It's the only one. Rocky Top's the best. I don't care how many times you've heard it.
You're saying non-fan, not just non-alumni.
Yeah, non-fan, non-alumni, non-Tennessee people.
So I was going to say, I've heard many a fight song played at a wedding.
Right. Yes. And plenty of Alabama people, hey, Alabama, I get it. Georgia's working on the railroad, I get it. A
cake this big with a real Jumbotron made out of a cell phone.
I get it. I'm saying I've heard more fans play Rocky Top at their weddings just because they love the song.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not even close. Give me number 2. There's not a number 2.
I'm going to sneeze.
Trick question.
There's not a number 2.
All right, rivalry. I don't think listen, we all love the Iron Bowl, but it's not my favorite rivalry.
Sorry. Whoever has headphones on.
Bless you. Goodness gracious. I wrote down one rivalry as my favorite rivalry. There can be some non-conference rivalries.
Florida, Georgia?
If you want. That's
Georgia,
a good
Florida?
one, too. What's your favorite? It's subjective. You can pick whichever one you want. I have a very obvious answer, and it's not Auburn, Alabama.
Really? The Egg Bowl.
It is the Egg Bowl.
Yep.
The Egg Bowl is my favorite. It is not South Carolina, Texas A&M.
No. No.
Whatever that trophy's called.
And I know, I mean, people love Alabama, Tennessee, but it's just not like the Egg Bowl is always interesting. You just never know what's going to happen. That's what I like about it. I'm not saying that's not true with the Iron Bowl, but like crazy things have happened, obviously. But the Egg Bowl is like the most consistently interesting.
It's the only one. It's not the only one. 0-11 Auburn and 0-11 Alabama would still be good. It would still be interesting. Tennessee, Alabama's great.
It's the lead up to the Egg Bowl. Florida,
Georgia's great. I think South Carolina, Clemson is very undervalued in terms of.
I know, but I didn't know we got to do non-con.
You can if you want.
I love South Carolina, Clemson.
It's your pod. I from a non-conference. I mean, Texas A&M will quickly become one of the best, if not the best.
Yep.
I also
LSU, Florida's a good one.
But like LSU A&M, you guys know me. I love LSU A&M. I love that.
But it hasn't been as like interesting lately. But when I was a senior, I almost went to LSU, so I wanted to go there and dance, but I ended up going to Vanderbilt.
So you could just do those L's.
Yeah. Well, really
stretch your artistic expression.
Yeah, exactly. But
Egg Bowl's top rivalry. Just I don't know.
But when I went to LSU, Florida in 2008. I got tickets for free because we were with our older friends who were in a fraternity, and half of them passed out. So they're like, I'm like, can I have your ticket? And they're like, yeah, just take it. You know, like, I mean, they're awake enough to give me their ticket, but it's like, I'm not saying that's why it's cool. They should not have been drinking that much.
No, I'm just thinking of all the things that I don't miss as an older person now.
No, not that.
Passing out drunk, dating.
But it was
don't miss any of that.
It was crazy. That was a crazy game to go to and very aggressive.
So it's funny because like every time I tweet that rivalry out, I get I think it's Booger McFarland who always is like, that game is not as important. He's always responding to me. And he's like, it's not as important. It's not as important. People don't care about it as much. Like Florida and Auburn played every year for like 60 years before the split in 92. I'm just glad with the scheduling model coming back that we're going to see more of those games. But if you're talking about to me, it has to be in state. Texas A&M. I think the Florida, Georgia one's pretty good, but like Clemson, South Carolina is so hate filled. Louisville, Kentucky is a great rivalry. I think you have to me, what makes a rivalry great is you have to be interwoven in your daily lives. Like it can't
yeah, you have to not want to go to work or school the next day if you lose, because you don't want to see people.
You don't know who, like each row in the pew at church could be a different fan. The different street in your neighborhood could be different fans, but like you are all Auburn, Alabama fans, or you're all Mississippi State, Ole Miss fans.
You had to pick. I just think
the Egg Bowl's more. It's just, I don't know.
I think we're on the same page about this.
There's just something deeper in there. I don't know. I think that's it. Like I think that's all our superlatives. We had
No, we're
gonna do restaurants and bars here because we haven't eaten at all the places. Obviously,
marching band.
Go for it. I don't have it. I mean,
LSU or Tennessee.
I would say Tennessee, but all right. So this is tough because there's two different ways to eat food in college campuses.
At a restaurant or not?
There's I'm
answering your question.
There's an adult way to do it, and the list of names as an adult on my list is very different than the list of names that I would go to if I was like 27, an early, like a young adult who's single, who's going with his buddies to a game on a tailgate tour. Like I'm going to walk-ons in Baton Rouge.
I was just about to say walk-ons.
If I'm a 27-year-old and single, but I might be going to like, I don't know, Paraines or something. I might be going someplace nicer. So my favorite restaurants are like, so we went to Railbird Fest in Lexington.
You're going to be better at this than me. Let me just say this because
yes, thank you. Say that again. Can you say that again?
You're going to be better at this than me because
you guys get that?
Most of the time, like college and even after college, I was either dancing and not going to any place, or I was working every time I went.
Right.
And I'm not going to be as good at this, but I have been to walk-ons.
A lot of the same for me.
Well, yeah.
But I've gone to a lot as an adult.
Because you got to like go eat and then like go to the game. I had to like ride with the team.
Right. So I went to cover like Auburn spring game when Nick Marshall was the quarterback, like after the year they lost in the national championship game. at Auburn, and I went down there and I ate at like Hamilton's and Acre, and like these are nice restaurants.
Right.
The Hound would be like one of my favorite restaurants in the entire SEC.
What's that?
Because it's like a barbecue joint where you could also get breakfast.
That's in Auburn?
And it's in Auburn. All three of these places are in Auburn.
You love Auburn.
But I do. I love Auburn. But if I go eat at a restaurant like with my wife, no kids, I'm going to Acre, and I'm getting like a really nice dinner. Like Lexington, we went to Merrick Inn, which is, if you're from Nashville, you'll know Jimmy Kelly's. It's kind of like it just has this old school vibe. It's like in an apartment complex. It's fine. It's very Ye Old Steakhouse, which is another one in Knoxville, which is like, it's okay. The food is good, but you're like paying for like the brand, and a kind of like an old South traditional steakhouse where it's like, it could be better, but it's solid. But I went to Dudley's downtown in Lexington, and I was like, "This is spectacular."
Is that a steak place?
I think I got.
I've been to a nice steakhouse in Lexington, but I can't remember what it's called.
Every one of these places has great. So like Knoxville, I had my graduation dinner at Chesapeake's, which is a very traditional kind of old restaurant, but like a nice one. There were very few nice restaurants in Knoxville in 2004.
Yeah.
But like but when I take my kids back now, we're gonna go to Gus's Good Time Deli. You know what I mean? Like there's two different types of ways to go.
In Knoxville, if you're in college, like when I was going to visit friends in Knoxville when I was in college, like I feel like every place we went, I would look around and be like, did this used to be a Chili's? That's what everything looks like. Because there were a couple restaurants.
Copper Kettle.
Like, no, one was wherever they give you those like cheese curds or whatever. That place is right on the strip. It definitely used to be a Chili's. Like, it's a bar now. But like, you look around and you're like, I didn't realize how distinct Chili's was until I'm in a place that isn't supposed to be Chili's, but definitely was Chili's. Like, what's it called?
I have no idea what you're calling.
Sean?
There's a McAllister's or something. I don't know.
What's the place on the strip in Knoxville that it definitely used to be a Chili's and now it's a bar? They serve those little like cheese curd like things.
This is great. This is great podcast.
I know. This is good. We can use the.
So like city.
We can crowdsource here.
You guys crowdsource. Like City Grocery in Oxford is excellent, but it's like Ajax is like another level. So like there's just different ways to do it.
What bar would you go? We both love the library.
I love the library. Is probably anything on the square in Oxford is probably my favorite. Just in general, I think Lexington is underrated as a town. We didn't really talk about this in the towns, but I think Lexington is. A lot of people look at Lexington and call it like one of the worst SEC towns. I think it is. Downtown, it's kind of like Fayetteville. It's got like way more charm than you think. It's a little bit bigger than you think, but it's also still like got this deep SEC feel to it. So I really liked Lexington. Auburn is different. Starkville and Oxford. Oxford is very, very much like your prototypical small college town in the middle of nowhere. But you're anything on the square.
Yeah.
Anything on the square in Oxford is good. Anything down the strip in Athens is great. If you're going to go Texas, Franklin's Barbecue is fine. It's not worth the wait. Ironworks is one of my favorites. If you're in Austin, go to Ironworks. I love that place. But here's what I want. I want you guys to tell us what you like.
Yeah.
If you're a Missouri fan, tell us what the best 2 or 3 places are to go. Because I'm going to be there in like 3 months. Like if you're going to Fayetteville, what are the best 2 or 3 places to go eat? I want to know from the people who are fans and have done all these places because I have not been to all of these places. I know, because I don't even want to speak to any of them because I feel like I'm going to get it wrong. I will say I like just the name Blizzard's Thicket. That's in Columbia, South Carolina. Sean, if you think of that, please chime in. Here's the other one that I like that I've been to, but I can't remember because I was so young that I can't remember if it was like elite or like just fine. But like Dixie Chicken in College Station was I remember being fine. It was good. But it's a great name. It's a good name for a place. Don't come to Nashville and go to Hattie B's, by the way. If you were in college at Alabama, is it Round? Like, is that? And didn't everyone go to Rounders? Yes, that's the one across the street. I think from like that's where all the incidents have been taken somewhere. Yeah, there's like you want to be careful if you're a female in Rounders ever. Sorry. So like Dreamland is another one that everyone's going to know and everyone's going to talk about. But if I'm driving through Birmingham, I'm stopping at Saw Soul Kitchen, not Dreamland. Saw Soul Kitchen in Avondale, Birmingham might be my favorite non-Nashville restaurant in an SEC. I guess it's not technically in an SEC town, but it's not technically. What is it? But it's the SEC office. So what? It's not Cool Beans.
Cool Beans.
It's not Cool Beans. Cool Beans.
It's not?
Cool Beans was not a restaurant.
I think it was Cool Beans.
It was not a restaurant.
It was a bar.
It's a bar. When
No,
I
it was a
there.
bar that used to be a Chili's.
Oh,
I'm telling you, I remember because they called them cheese beans or whatever.
Oh, okay. I don't even remember
Yeah,
them.
Sean, you're right.
I don't even remember them serving food. I'm not sure my wife remembers them serving food either.
Well, I was hungry and I ate there.
That was a drinking capital of the
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that.
campus. Anyway, it's
What
not as good
about
of a Rooster or a Gus's Good Time
I would
Deli.
not know where to eat in Starkville, Mississippi.
I don't either.
The only time I've been to Starkville, that's not true. I've been twice. Once for a dance camp and once to go to a game.
Isn't it when you first tried Boone's Farm wine?
Yes, that's the only thing I was served there. I was served chips and Boone's Farm the whole weekend. It's not enough to soak up game day drinking.
Right. Send us your recommendations because we'll be moving around the Southeast a little bit more this season. So just send us your recommendations.
If you Google,
there we go.
If you Google places to eat or drink when you come to Nashville for a Vanderbilt game, do not believe the articles that say Commodore Grill in the bottom of the Holiday Inn. It's not true. Don't go there. Just message us and we'll tell you where to go.
Actually, the only place you want to go on West End is Jasper's. Other than that, you need to go into the boroughs. You got to go into the boroughs.
There's plenty of places that are
North
not in
Nashville. You got to go to Sylvan Park. You got to go to Belmont, 12 South, East Nashville. You got to Wedgwood, Houston has amazing restaurants. You just can't do.
They're all close together, though.
Yes, they're all close. Don't do Nashville's too small to have like true boroughs.
I have an insane list if anyone needs it.
Don't do downtown and don't really do much on West End. That's all.
Yeah.
Get out. Go like a mile in any direction, and you'll find like really great restaurants.
It's true. Okay.
But we can give you a long list if you want to know and you're coming to town, and if you want an event space to host a party.
You can host
Cast
it
Collective.
here.
There
Thank
you
you,
go.
Braden. I appreciate that.
And make sure, thanks to our musical guests, of course, the Wild Feathers, not our guests. They've just been providing the music for the show for a long time, so we do appreciate it. All right, we're going to do a State of the Union for Alabama football. We're going to ask the question, is the Alabama dynasty dead? Is it dying? Has Nick Saban lost his touch? We'll do all that in just a minute. We're going to hear from Mike Rodak from AL.com, but quickly, here was my apology on the Paul Feinbaum show, using the phrase that I was supposed to use as requested by South Carolina fans on the Paul Feinbaum show.
It was the second option, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't use cocksucker. Here it is.
Listen, I will say this. I'll say it loud and clear on the Paul Feinbaum show for everyone to hear. South Carolina, Shane Beamer, I am sorry. I was dead wrong about your program last year. I was wrong about the year before that. And if I'm wrong again, I will stand up and I will say proudly that I am a cockadoodle doofus if I get it wrong again. But I need to see the consistency out of the quarterback. I need to see it. I want to see the offensive line develop. And I was wrong last year. Many of us were wrong last year, and we are sorry. I'm apologizing openly. But I need to see a couple more things before we start talking about South Carolina in that Georgia, Tennessee, that top tier category in the East. And yes, I know the score of the game between South Carolina and Tennessee. We're going to talk gambling. How about some gambling? What is going on in college sports? Should we be concerned, or is gambling a good thing? Is legalized gambling helping this process? We're going to do that, and we'll take your calls. All of that next right here. Braden Gall in for Paul Feinbaum. This is the Paul Feinbaum Show on ESPN Radio.
All right, was that a sufficient enough apology? I said I was wrong multiple times about multiple seasons live on the Paul Feinbaum Show and called myself a cockadoodle doofus and said if I'm wrong again, I'll say I'm wrong again.
It's just everything that you do with them is like comes with stipulations. It's just conditional. It's like, yeah, you kind of do it and then you take it back every time. You never just apologize and stick it. You're like, but also y'all aren't very good. And it's like, well, that doesn't feel.
So I'm the Simone Biles of
you
apologies.
are something. I don't know if
I'm quitting at the end.
Don't compare yourself to champions, Braden.
South Carolina fans, look at me. I am sorry for being wrong about your team each of the last two seasons.
Braden's apologies. No, yours is like, I'm sorry if you feel that way. It's like, that's not an apology.
That was a direct apology. I could not apologize any more clearly than that with no stipulations. You didn't let me finish. I'm a cockadoodle doofus. I'm sorry. Full stop. No stipulations.
Okay, move on.
Got it?
Move on and don't say anything else.
Go Cox. Here's our conversation with Mike Rodak of AL.com.
Mike, thanks for joining us, man. Welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
So before we get into the actual depth chart and the strengths and weaknesses of this Alabama team, maybe expectations, which of course are sky high for all Crimson Tide fans, I want to know, in your opinion, if you had to guess, what is the driving force behind Nick Saban eventually deciding I'm done, enough is enough, and I'm going to retire?
So he's a guy who has adapted well to all the changes in college football past 10, 15 years. I mean, there's the whole thing with the spread offense that he said, is this what we want football to be? And then that's what Alabama became. And they won national championships doing that. He's adapted, I think, to the transfer portal into NIL, and he's probably continuing to adapt to that. I don't think they're fully there yet, but at some point, I do think all the changes to the game and how different the game is from where it was 20, 30 years ago when he was, first coaching as a head coach. I do think that eventually will force him out, or cause him to say, I no longer want to deal with this system that, I mean, he's openly complained about it. I think even a couple months ago, he was talking to Stephen A, and he said, I'd rather have the NFL system where you have contracts and a salary cap and players are employees and everything's kind of settled that way than just the free for all that it is currently. I think they'll try to find ways to be as competitive as they can be within this system. But at some point, he might just say, this is not what I want to be doing. I don't want to be, in his words, soliciting money from donors to pay our players. He's a guy who I think loves to adapt, loves to kind of get up to whatever changes are happening, but at some point they'll catch up to him.
That's so fascinating because they used to just have bagmen for that at Alabama and everywhere else in college football. It's so fascinating because normally the complaints are generally like actually threats, right? Like, hey, I'm complaining about this, but if you don't fix it, I'm going to use it to like beat you down. And what I find fascinating is part of the reason he left the Dolphins in the first place was that he did not like the player acquisition process. He knew he could outwork people, and so. To me, I don't know what you think. To me, it's sort of like I don't think I can do as well as I'm supposed to do. Does that make sense? Like Nick Saban, minute by minute, day by day, has like an expectation of himself from like meeting to meeting, and if like he can't do the best job up to his own standards, is that you put that together with all the rule changes? You put that together with maybe he keeps losing to Kirby Smart. Like I don't know. Like is it? He's not a young guy. Like is all that the stuff that just eventually happens in the next couple of years?
Well, that's kind of what he says is, when I retire, and he's been asked this a lot recently, what will cause you to retire? And essentially says, if I don't feel like I'm, fully helping the program, if I'm not,
right,
giving them everything that they need or dragging the program down is essentially what he said. And, again, I don't think they're there yet. But, with the player acquisition too, there's still, it's not as much of a strategic advantage as it once was for them. I think Nick Saban kind of loved operating in that environment where he could say, come to Alabama, we're going to make you into an NFL player. Look how much our players have made in the NFL. Look how many first-round picks we have. Get an education and all that. And he could sell players on all that stuff. And I do think there's a lot of players that came to Alabama because of that, compete against the best and all those things, all those selling points that he made. And now those aren't always the most important things to players. It's, well, are you giving me 300,000 or 700,000 to come? Yeah. And that's what players are kind of looking at right now. But I mean, I still think he has a couple more years left. I mean, he's 72 this year. I think he can coach into his mid 70s easily. Yeah. But I don't think he's going to be coaching until he's 80.
It's just hilarious to hear a sentence like, the problem with Alabama is Nick Saban. Like that seems like a crazy thing to think about. Which I know it's all in his own head and his own expectation. I get all of that. The quarterback situation, like I always thought most of January, February, March, most of the spring, the Athlon. I work at Athlon. We're putting the Athlon magazine out, athlonsports.com, by the way. We almost all assumed Ty Simpson would be the guy. He would win the job because he stretched the field vertically a lot more than Jalen Milroe. Milroe sort of gives them like a Jalen Hurts freshman year, like level that they can, floor that's pretty nice. But Tommy Rees has a very close relationship with Tyler Buckner. Is this more creating competition and just seeing the cream rise to the top? Or is this more, I watched spring practice and I am a little bit more concerned than I was in January? Do you have any idea which one that is?
I lean towards the latter because I do think when you look at Ty Simpson, he's been here since December of 2021. So that's, by the time that spring practice was over, that was 17 months in the program. Jalen Milroe has been here since, I think, January of 2020 or January 2021. And that's, almost 3 years. Like it's been a while for these guys. And at some point you see them on practice field this many times, you see them in the meeting rooms, like you just kind of figure out what they are. And I think that's the point where Nick Saban got with those guys is he kind of knew what he had in them and he thought that he needed something better. Now is the question, is Tyler Buchner better? I think one of the big problems that Nick Saban had during spring practice was Simpson and Milroe with big turnovers and big mistakes. We saw it out of Milroe in the spring game where he was in the end zone, just kind of chucked the ball up. It was a dumb interception. Buchner has issues with interceptions too. I mean, his interception rate is pretty bad. Even in the Notre Dame spring game, I think he threw on 10 passes. So, that's, you're not exactly correcting that by bringing him in. I think there's a risk of having another turnover prone quarterback. But again, I think you have Nick Saban looking at this as, well, I got to go find somebody better. I know what I have in the two guys that I are already on the roster. And in this case, Saban always says like he won't bring a transfer in if he doesn't feel like he can make an immediate impact, if he doesn't feel like he could be a starter. I don't think they're just bringing in Buchner to, push Ty Simpson and motivate him or just kind of be competition in the room. Like this is a legitimate guy who can start. Obviously, like you said, the relationship with Tommy Rees is also pretty important there where they go back a lot further than Tommy does with Miller or Ty.
Is the rest of this offense, outside of maybe Jahmyr Gibbs, is the rest of this offense better around the quarterback than it was last year?
Debatable. I think wide receiver, I think they have potential to be better, but it's the same group. I mean, it's mostly the same. They didn't have anybody go up for the draft at wide receiver. So it's Ja'Cory Brooks and Jermaine Burton are your top two guys right now. There's a lot of optimism around Malik Benson. The JUCO transfer came in, you can stretch the field. Didn't really do much in the spring game until the final drive and had 4 catches against the walk-on corner. So, we'll have to see how that plays out in the fall. But they need, I remember my first year covering this team, my first game was Jerry Jeudy, 80-yard touchdown in the first game. Second game I covered, Henry Ruggs took a slant pass, 75 yards. They just had those guys that just waddle, like Devontae Smith. They don't have those guys right now, or at least we haven't seen that out of the wide receivers that they have. So that's a work in progress. I think running back does have a chance to be better. I think they really, really like what they have in Justice Haynes, the freshman who came in. Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams are kind of the incumbents and might have the best chance to have the biggest roles. But I think Haynes could really push himself into a potentially a primary role at running back. So they could be better at running back. But overall, the offense was saved last year by Bryce Young a lot of times. And, if you don't have that quarterback this year, it's hard to say it's going to be better.
At coordinator, I would argue personally that I think they're in a better situation in those two spots, defensive and offensive coordinator. Do the fans feel that way? Are the fans happier with the two guys they have now, or are they wrong about that?
There's always kind of a novelty factor, I think, with coordinators. And I used to cover the NFL and I still follow the Buffalo Bills and the team that I covered. And everybody up there is like, we need a new coordinator. Then they go out and get one. And it's like, oh, we hate this guy now. We need another one. It's always the coordinators are always going to catch the most flack, especially at Alabama, where not a lot of fans are going to criticize Nick Saban. So it always kind of flows down to both coordinators. And right now you have two guys who haven't had a chance to screw up yet. So in contrast to Bill O'Brien and Pete Golding, who everybody kind of saw the last few years and like, oh, we don't want those guys, but they still had a top 10 defense last year. Their offense was still pretty good, even if it wasn't what it was, under Steve Sarkisian. So we'll have to see if those guys, if the new guys can do better. But I think fan-wise, there's more optimism just because they're new and they're different.
Yeah. The OC always the easiest and first punching bag of every team that's not playing perfect football. So that I struggled with this a lot last season, trying to analyze what they were, Alabama. And sometimes the simplest answer is the one that's right in front of you. Like they're 2 plays away from being 12-0. They're also a couple of plays away from being 8-4. And therefore, they are just 10-2. Like that's just what they are. With their current roster the way it is, I mean, this is still one of the best rosters, 1-85 in all of college football. They still have the greatest coach of all time. They still are very talented on the staff and at quarterback. Whether one of those three guys is great, we don't know, but they're still pretty talented. Is this team, LSU's not fully mature yet, is a phrase that I would use in terms of like championship status. Georgia clearly is. Is this team closer to like third in the SEC, third with like Tennessee and LSU? Are they closer to like bouncing back and being up there battling with Georgia like they did 2 years ago in the SEC title game? Do you get a sense as to like which direction this team leans? Because I can't imagine they're much worse than third or fourth in the conference at worst case scenario.
Right. Yeah. Worst case scenario, they lose 3 games this year. But you're right. I mean, they could have lost 5 games last year, even. Like the Ole Miss game came down to the final play, really, in the red zone. The Texas game, Texas A&M game. They won all 3 of those. And that team, I think, honestly, was better because of Bryce Young and Will Anderson than this team is, as we kind of have seen it so far. So, and this is my 5th season covering the team. I've kind of watched Alabama before that. This is probably the worst team that I've seen. Again, we haven't really seen them in the game yet, but just on paper, just the most uncertain team that I've seen so far. Now there's moving parts to that, like in terms of being closer to first or third. Like I think Georgia could slip a little bit. And so that brings Alabama closer to first place. But I think there's a feeling that's growing around here that like Georgia's entrenched in that top spot in the SEC. And now it's up to Alabama to try to figure out a way to knock them off. And that's different, obviously, than it was a couple of years ago. And yeah, you have teams like LSU. I mean, we'll have to see with Tennessee and some of the losses they've had offensively, but I mean, that's an offense that gave Nick Saban all sorts of trouble last year. Yeah, I would honestly say they're closer to third than they are in the first in the SEC.
The schedule does help, right? Like a lot of those tough games that they had last year, Texas, LSU, Tennessee in particular, all of those games are coming at home. Defensively, they're probably still another top 10 team. So I guess the depth chart on the defense, is there anything that a couple of safeties go to the NFL? You lose Will Anderson, but are there question marks, those uncertainty things that you're talking about? Like, are there more concerns at the quarterback and on offense, or defense? You sort of just think, all right, plug and play, rotate, next 5-star up. Is that more how we feel about the defense?
To some extent, yeah. I think the offense is the bigger concern because of quarterback, but the defense still lost 8 starters. And, Anderson's the biggest one because teams had the game plan around him. I don't think they have a guy right now that can make that sort of impact. I mean, Dallas Turner is probably the closest, but he's not Will Anderson. So, they're still very, very talented, I think, on the edges. They get a lot of 5-star corners. They get a lot of 5-star edge rushers. We'll have to see up the middle of the field, at defensive tackle, inside linebacker, safety. I think those are the bigger question marks. They feel really good about Caleb Downs, the 5-star freshman safety who came in, top 10 sort of prospect, and he'll start right away. But I think the secondary as a whole is still a little bit of a question mark. That second corner spot that gave them some trouble last year. They thought Eli Ricks was going to be that guy. Terran Arnold was in there. They went out into the portal a couple weeks ago, got Trey Amos from Louisiana. They got the UAB safety, Jalen Key, potentially start next to Caleb Downs. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of new faces, some younger guys back there. The secondary, I think, I don't want to say it's an issue, but it's an unknown at this point. I think, Cooley and McKinstry and Downs, you can get some solid play out of. The other 3 or 4 guys, well, let's have to see.
Yep. We'll let you go. Ultimately, it's May, but there are more questions about the trajectory of Alabama football in this May than ever before. That does not mean we should be writing the obit about the dynasty, because many old takes exposed writing that obituary of the Saban dynasty have been wrong every single time. And I would not bet against him, but it does feel like for the first time in a long time, I'm saying, well, this is a rebuilding year and it's all about 2024. So is this a sign of just a blip? Is this just a dip because of all the factors, and trying to maintain that certain level of excellence is virtually impossible at every school in America, no matter where you are? Or is this do you have a larger concern about the overall trajectory, considering the things we just talked about with Saban, his age, and the rule changes and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on how you define dynasty. And I think this came up a lot when I covered the Patriots, because, people would always call them a dynasty. they went 10 years between winning Super Bowls, 2005 to 2014 season, basically. But they were still competing every single year. They were still right up there. And obviously now they aren't. So I think, is it a question of, were they a dynasty when they were winning championships or when they were competing for championships? Obviously they aren't now when they're not. Alabama, did they need to be winning championships once every 2 years, once every 3 years in order to be called a dynasty? Or can they just be a really, really good football team that maybe falls short? They're fifth in the country last year. Does that still make them a dynasty? I don't know.
What a bunch of losers.
Right. Yeah. So it all depends on perspective. I do think fans around here have a really high standard, and that's just, how college football is. But, like I said, there's a couple more years left in Nick Saban. It's not, I don't think it's 10 years left. So there's not a whole lot of runway to win more with him. But the recruiting's still there. I mean, they have one of the top quarterbacks in the class coming in next year. I think for them, it's retaining all these recruits because they lose a lot through the transfer portal. You can have a great class, and then a year or two later, 30%, 40% of them are gone. And then it's just, NIL has even the playing field a little bit between the top teams, where you have schools with more money like Texas and Oregon and those places that can pay guys more. And that Alabama advantage kind of drips away a little bit. So they're dealing with that, but I don't think anybody's going to say they're not a top 10 team in the country this year. So again, it's all perspective. If they're not number one, maybe they're number 4 or 5, and kind of depends on where you put that.
Yeah, preseason number 5, a major down year for Alabama. Mike, thank you so much, man. We do appreciate you. Obviously, you got lots of other stuff going on between now and football season, but we'll see you at SEC Media Days. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
That was Mike Rodak of AL.com, our Alabama State of the Union. And before we let everybody go today, Aaron, I mean, I think the demise of Nick Saban's dynasty has been written about way, 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 way too many times. What are you doing up there?
I'm looking at these hats.
Playing with the hats.
Looking at these hats.
And I think while I am concerned about the Alabama quarterback situation, and I really like Georgia and LSU this year, and I think the schedule is very difficult for Alabama, I think what Michael Bratton of that SEC podcast said last week, and I think what Mike just alluded to there, is that we are not, I don't agree that we are nearing the end of the dynasty. But I want to know, are you generally concerned Nick Saban being up there in age relative to his competitors, Georgia being great, LSU being great potentially for a while, Tennessee rebounding, the best Ole Miss and Arkansas we've seen in a while? Like, there's just a lot of really good around Nick Saban now. Do you think we are trending in a direction that says maybe that the dynasty part of his coaching tenure is over? Or is he going to win like 4 out of 7? Like, I think there's a middle ground here, but I want to know what you think.
I do think it's getting harder. I think it's getting tougher, but no, I don't think you can write off someone like Nick Saban that quickly and say it's the end of a dynasty because, they didn't win last 2 years. I mean, that's pretty quick. But I do think it's getting harder, and I think with the additions to the SEC and like seeing programs like LSU and Georgia find their footing, Georgia more so. Tennessee,
yep.
That it's going to get harder because it's not just 2 teams existing in that upper tier. It's like closer to 5 being able to go at it at once.
Hugh Freeze will make Auburn
But no,
better.
I'm not concerned about Nick Saban.
No, I'm not either. But I will admit, while I don't think there's some like hot take here that says it's the end of the dynasty, I do think that there are signs of, and how about this? There are reasons to ask the questions more so today than ever before, which is, again, age. How long do you want to keep doing this? The landscape around you has gotten significantly more difficult. Texas and Oklahoma are joining in. NIL, portal, playoff expansion. It's all college football is about so many more different things than just outworking and out recruiting the other guy, which is what Saban has built. And so I could see him in 2 years just being like, I'm good. Whether he wins a title or not, I don't think that signals the end of his. I mean, I guess technically it's the end of his career, and then therefore the end of his dynasty, but I don't think he's losing it. I don't think he's losing.
No.
Like, I think his roster is still one of the best rosters in America this year.
No.
So.
Whoever said, it's not, we have no proof that.
I mean, they were 2 plays away from being 12-0 last year. They were 2 plays away from being 8-4 last year.
Yeah.
So which one is it? We don't know. They probably were just 10-2.
I am far from concerned.
Yeah, I'm not either. Special thanks to Mike Rodak. We apologize. I apologize to South Carolina. Make sure you check out the Cast Collective. Make sure you check out Wild Feathers as well. Obviously, Sean P. Diddy Combs for getting this whole thing up on YouTube. Subscribe, rate,
Can
review.
Sean P. Diddy Combs have that hat for all of his work?
This one actually has been worn many times by me.
Well, can you get Sean one?
I can absolutely get one for Sean.
He'll want that
Do you want
exact
the
one.
black one, Sean?
Sean, do you like this hat?
You want the black one? Look at this black one. It's pretty sweet.
Look how cool this hat is. I'm making Braden get
I have
you one.
worn it so many times. You don't want this one.
Okay. Well,
These other ones have not been worn. I haven't been wearing the Florida one, so you're good. Otherwise, thanks for listening. Rate, review, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Follow her on Twitter at the Erin Dugan, at Erin_Dugan on Instagram, at 440 Sports as well. And you can get to me at Braden Gall. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. This has been Fringe Element here on the 440 Sports Network.
peace.